Okay, hello and welcome. How are you doing? I'm so happy to have you all here. I'm so excited because we have some new some new faces and some familiar faces. So welcome to everyone. Today, we're going to talk about leveraging leadership with our speaker. I'm sorry if I mispronounce her name, with Renate Van der Westhuizen. We are thrilled to have you all here with us today. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that this session is being recorded, so if you are uncomfortable with that, you are welcome to turn off your camera. Also, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you are joining us from. I'm Carolina from Buenos Aires, Argentina. During the session, please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking and feel free to use the reaction buttons or the chat box to interact and participate in this session. We highly encourage actively participating. Our spotlights are packed with a warm welcome, content delivery, and an interactive Q&A session. Today, we are privileged to have Renate, an experienced educator and leader who will be sharing her expertise and insights on the topic of leveraging leadership. She has a lot of knowledge, as we've seen in the video in this area, will provide us with some valuable perspectives and strategies. Now let's give her a warm welcome. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Carolina, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here today. So as Carolina already said, I'm Renate Van der Westhuizen, and I am the founding principal of Apex High School, which is a no-fee government school in East River. And I just took some screenshot of our community. The area in which I serve is infamous for gangsterism, poverty, drugs, alcohol abuse, and in the heart of electricity, you will find Apex High School. The school opened in 2018, and in 5 years, we were able to establish ourselves as a real beacon of hope in this community. As I said, we are a no-fee school. We are also the only no-fee school in East River. All the other schools paying fees. And in the first year that we got matric results, we were able to outperform even not only the fee-paying schools, but the focus schools, which means a school for only maths and science. So a lot of people have asked us, but how did you do that? And for me, it is quite simple. When I started at the school, I really knew nothing about anything. And I was trained to be able to do the stuff that I do through courses I did at the Instructional Leadership Intercourse, and also through an NGO that works in education called Acorn Education. So the good news is today that if you like what you see today, it's very easy to copy and paste it into your own school. It can be done anywhere at any school with any child. So, and then just also wanted to share this with us during COVID, just after COVID, we didn't lose any contact time with our kids. We immediately went online and opened an online school so that our kids don't have learning losses during that time. And then we were recognized in South Africa as that year the super school of the year. Okay, so then the question is, how did we do that? So I believe that if you have the following 7 levers or the following 7 things that you do in your school, you can basically turn around any school. You can have a top performing school if you do these things. So the first thing we divided into academic and culture. So under the academic, you have data-driven instruction, then instructional planning, observation and feedback, professional development, and then under culture, you have student culture, staff culture, and managing school leadership teams. So I'm just going to go through every one of these before we start. They said, these spotlight sessions is there so that people who do join can take away a nugget to your own school. So I'm hoping that between these things that you can find some nugget that you can implement in your own school. So let's start with student culture. Okay, so I love this quote where it says, culture is not formed by motivational speeches or statement of values. It is formed by repeated practice using every minute of the day to build good habits. And that is significant for me because a lot of time when You know, when we are being monitored, that they like to ask, but where's this value put up in your school? And then I tell the people, it's not put up anywhere. We live our values. We don't have to display them. It's in ourselves, it's part of our culture. So this for me is the most important part. And I wish when we started school in 2018, I spent even more time on student culture, because if this is not right, then anything else that you do will fall flat. And because we have worked incredibly hard on our student culture, we can basically implement anything at our school, because the culture is established. Quickly want to tell you a story. When I was appointed in 2018 as a principal, a few of the other principals, 4 other high school principals, came to the school to welcome me. And, you know, they said they were glad to have me here and good luck. And I showed them the school a little bit. And they walked around, and obviously it was brand new. There were no kids here yet. And they said, yes, like, you've got a beautiful school. And then they kind of laughed. And I said, you know, what's so funny? And they said, no, they're just looking at the windows. And they noted that in a couple of years, I won't have any windows that's not broken. And I want to go back to them, because it's 6 years and I don't have any broken windows. I've never had a child break a window ever at the school. So it's a stupid example, but it's something that shows student culture. So first we have to answer the question, why is culture so important? And my simple reason is, if we do not, we will waste time on things that's really, really not important. If you look at routines and procedures, so a routine in your school is anything from walking into a class, to walking out of a class, to handing out a piece of paper, to the time that kids get from when the morning bells rings and until they get to the class, or even when the bell rings after break, how quickly a child gets into class. So if you look at a good school, or any school will have more about 30 transitions and routines that take place in a school day. If you think that's a bit much, at our school we've got 10 periods a day. So if to go into the class is a routine, to go out of the class is a routine. That's already 20 times, okay? So if you're in a good school, then it will take more or less 4 minutes each. 4 minutes to go into a class, 4 minutes to go out of the class, and so forth. So that's 4 minutes each on 30 routines. So that is 2 hours per day, just transitioning. So 2 hours a day, just transitioning. So this means 10 hours per week, 40 hours per month, 360 hours per school year, and 45 school days that we just spend on ineffective routines, walking into a class, walking out of a class. So this is an example of our intro routine. It's obviously just a picture, but we have a routine for everything in our school. How to enter a class, how to exit a class, how to hand out a piece of paper, how to exit the school at the end of the day, how to go back to your class after break. And how we do it in the school is, first we roll it out to the teachers. So you get buy-in from the teachers, and you explain exactly to the teachers why it is necessary. Because if you're studying to become a teacher, and if you're teaching it at any school, it means that you've got a passion for kids, hopefully, most of the teachers. And it also means that you want to see them progress. You want to see them successful. So if you don't spend time on teaching, you are not ever going to see that success. So it's very important to get buy-in from the teachers, first of all. Then when you get buy-in from the teachers, you kind of train them how to do it. So we call it a minute by minute. We have a routine, and then we say exactly what is the teacher doing, what is the teacher not doing, what is the child doing, what is the child not doing, and most importantly, what is the leader during this time. So then you share it with the teachers, and then after you've shared it with the teachers, you will practice it with the teachers. So if you want to start any new routine, in the afternoon, you literally practice it with the teachers until they don't get it right. And for a teacher, it's much better to fail or to make a mistake in front of your colleagues than it is to make a mistake in front of all of the kids. Not that mistakes is a bad thing. And after you've got the teachers trained, you go to the kids and you tell the kids, okay, we are all here to have a good education. We're all here to further our studies. This is what we need to do to prevent chaos from happening, so you kind of make them responsible for the routine as well. And then you do the same with them. You explain to them why, you explain to them step by step how you're going to do it, and then you practice with the kids. So we practice with our grade 8s, with our new intake, before they even start the school. So we make them come in 3 days before, and then we practice how to walk, how to sit, how to enter a class, so that when you start, you do not waste any unnecessary time. Okay, so that's the routines. Then part of culture is also definitely a massive focus on a growth mindset. And we believe, and a growth mindset is basically just that you believe that talent and intelligence can be improved through effort and actions. So it's not that, you know, you were born and then you're born, either you're autistic or you are born being able to do maths. We believe and we teach our children that, yes, maybe you are struggling with maths, but it doesn't mean you can't do maths. You just can't do maths yet. But if you practice and you practice and you practice, you will be able to one day master it. And obviously a massive part of this is feedback and the feedback you give to our kids. And Carol Dweck did a study with 373 fifth graders. And they made all of the kids come in and write the same test. And then they split the group into two. And the first group of kids were praised for their intelligence. They were given feedback like, yo, you did so well in the test, you must be really smart. And then the second group were given feedback for their effort. And they said stuff like, you did really well, you must have worked really hard, you must have put in a lot of effort. And then they gave the two groups some options to do another test. But they can choose between doing a test on the same level and doing a slightly more difficult test. And out of the first group, the intelligent feedback, 67% of the kids chose the easier option. And with the effort group, 92% of the kids chose to do a harder test. And then at the end, they did another test. They gave all the kids the same test again on the same level as the first test. And the kids that did that were praised for their intelligence did 20% worse. And then the kids, they decreased their scores with 20%. And then the kids that were praised for their effort increased their results with 30%. So there's great value in teaching a growth mindset and then also praising kids, but not for their intelligence, for their effort. And then obviously, we also encourage making mistakes. And then the last thing under growth mindset for kids is just values. We have 7 values that we drive, but we don't only display it. Yes, it is displayed, but we put it into our discipline system. So if a kid did something, anything like disrupt the class, then we talk to them, we give them a demerit, but then we link it with our value system and we ask them like, how are you taking responsibility for your own studies? Because responsibility is one of our values. So you kind of intertwine it with the discipline system. And then also we award values often. We give value certificates. We even have a student spotlight or scholar spotlight every week in which we focus a child that did something with regards to their values. All right. So that's the first lever, which is student culture. And then we look at staff culture. And then the quote there, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Basically, I learned early that it doesn't matter like what intervention plans I want to run. It doesn't matter what we give it doesn't matter. If your staff culture is bad, then the strategy really doesn't matter. And with bad staff culture, we just speak about, are you all in for the kids? How do we talk about the kids? How do we talk about the school? How do we talk about each other? And in the beginning, it was, when I started the school, it was very much, you wanted everybody to be happy. And we are people, we're not all going to be happy. We're going to have bad days, we're going to have good days, but that's not school culture. So what we do with culture nowadays is we are very, very specific with who we recruit. In the beginning, when we interviewed for teachers, we ask about stuff like, how do you do your lesson planning? How do you deal with discipline? And then I realized that really doesn't matter because I'm going to train you how to do it anyway. So what matters firstly is, do you have content knowledge? And that is why we write a competency test for our teachers. But then the second thing is, how do you see kids coming from our community? So I love to ask a question. I ask, we have our first cohort of grade 12s writing the matric exam in 2021. What do you predict the pass rate will be? And if they start the sentence with, well, our type of kids, then I have a very, very, very clear indication of what they think about the difference between previously advantaged and previously disadvantaged kids. It's very important that you have buy-in for the vision and mission of our school. It's really, really important that you are on the same mission. You cannot have your leadership team and half of the teachers fighting for this thing that you want to prove, and the other half of your teachers, or a third of your teachers, or even a fifth of your teachers, they don't really believe it's possible for kids in our community to achieve the same. And because of this, the school culture and the staff culture, we were really able to create this beacon of hope. And it's at the bottom of your screen, you'll see our security guard. When it's raining, he started having an umbrella for the kids. And nobody told him to do that. It wasn't part of his expectations. But because he saw the kind of things that we stand for, they kind of automatically start doing it. And then last, under the heading of this culture, we have managing leadership teams. And the quote I have there is: a leader takes people where they want to go, and a great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. So we have a management team of 8 people, and it's the responsibility of our management team to train somebody in your team to become the next principal, to become the next deputy principal. And it's not only in like the systems of the school. We train our staff or our leaders in the school how to have a difficult conversation with somebody. You know, you're not a boss, you're a leader. So it's easy to tell people how to do it, but it's much, much better to train them how to do it and to get buy-in from your teachers. Okay, now for the fun stuff. Firstly, that was the culture. So now the second part is academics, and that's obviously more tangible stuff that you can literally take just as is and implement in your own school. The first thing is data-driven instruction, and that can be divided into 2 things. It's the culture of your school, and then also academics. So in the first place, you cannot improve what you don't measure. So a lot of people go into a school and then they go, like in the first meeting I had with our calibration partner, my mentor asked me, so how's late coming in your school? And I said, yeah, it's not such a big problem. And he said, no, I don't want to know that. I want to know exactly how many kids are late every day. And until you do that, you won't be able to change anything. So if you don't measure it, you can't change it. And then the second thing is effective instruction is not about whether we taught it, it's about whether the students learned it. And that is where I want to focus data instruction on. So firstly, we look at our lessons and we divide it into 3 parts. The I do, we do, you do part of the lesson. And the reason we do that is because we believe in guided practice. So instead of having a teacher standing in front of the class and teaching for 45 or 50 minutes, like I'm doing now, so it's kind of, yeah, if this was a lesson, it would have been really ineffective. But so the teacher is sharing the new content, and we call that the I do part of the lesson. So the teacher is modeling and the children is listening, and you break it down into clear, understandable steps. And in most cases, the teacher is also modeling to the child how to do it. And then you get to the we do part of the lesson. So there, the teacher and the students are completing the task or the activity or the sum together. So the teacher is still ahead of the class, they're still heading it, but they will be getting more engagement from the kids as to, you will say, okay, what did I do again in my first step? Tell me quickly what to do next. So the teacher is the leader, but you get more activity from the kids. And then the last part, and you can see it's you do, is independent practice. So you want them, the child, to practice what they did, and this must be the most part of the lesson, almost like riding a bicycle. So in the beginning, when you teach your toddler to ride a bicycle, you kind of hold them, you are standing beside them, or first, I suppose, you show them how to do it, right? So they see you riding the bicycle, and then they tell you, Mom, Dad, I also want to ride a bicycle. And then you kind of hold them, you are next to them, you don't let them go, and later you let them go a little bit at a time, and then later they are going to do it by themselves. They're first going to fall often, every day, multiple times a day, and then they'll practice until they don't get it wrong anymore. And that is what we try to implement in our classes as well. And during this part, it is really, really important to look at the data. So when the child is busy with the independent practice, the teacher is not sitting behind the desk. The teacher is walking around with a clipboard, they're looking at data, they're giving batch feedback, they have a clear monitoring pathway, and all of this is to close the gap. And we base our theory on Erickson, or K. Anders Erickson, The Power of Practice, and then also a guy called Willingham. And he basically argued that the reason why our kids are not performing to the best of their ability is because when they're in class, they store all the information in their short-term memory. That's why when you are teaching and you ask them to answer something, they can quickly recall the information because it's in the short-term memory. But if they have to recall that memory in the exam, then it's not there anymore. And that's because it's not in the long-term memory. It's almost like we are now. Like I can still remember my very first phone number that I ever had because we had to practice it, right? And then we get cell phones, and now I think I can remember my mom's cell phone number, and that's all, because we're not used to practicing it anymore. And the only thing how something can go into your short-term memory to your long-term memory is by deliberate practice. So that is why it's really important to look at the data and to then react on the data and close the gaps. And then when it comes to the other things in your school, like absenteeism versus performance, student attendance, the pass rates of the school, you keep record of every single thing, because if you don't keep record of it, then you're not ever going to move the needle. Okay, then we have instructional planning, which is also really, really important to us. So if you fail to plan, you definitely plan to fail. So I know in all schools, we do deliberate planning and we plan everything in your life, but we do the same with our lesson planning as well. When a teacher starts at our school, we expect them to write out the lesson planning in the I do, we do, you do structure, but then we also expect them to, for example, script the questions that they're going to ask the kids. We also expect them to script the response that we expect the child to have. And then we also expect them to script back pocket answers. We believe that you don't just tell a child the answer, you kind of scaffold until they can get the answer themselves. And then we also do a thing called medium-term planning. And that is where you take, in South Africa, we have a CAPS document that comes from our Department of Education, and they kind of tell you what to do in every week. So we take that and then we dig a little bit deeper, and then we expect our teachers to say, what is the objective for every lesson? And the objective is very important, that it is measurable and that it must be able to, it's detailed, and it must be able to be achieved in one lesson. So for example, if we teach life sciences and we say the child must understand the heart, what of the heart, the functions, the build, what do you want them to do? And then more importantly, how will you know if the child has mastered it? So you want to say that they must be able to list the components of the heart, or they must be able to describe this. And then we also have examples in not the upcoming exam, but the external exams, so that you can know what you are working towards, and that you can you make sure that the child is set up for success. And then almost the last thing is observation and feedback. So I think that has been the biggest change, or the thing that has created the biggest change in our school, is that we have a teacher coach for every single teacher in our school. So if you begin, and in the beginning, we were trained by an outside company, or our collaboration, Equine Education, and then they trained our leadership team how to do it with our own teachers. So now every teacher in our school is coached by a teacher. And how it works is you will observe a lesson. So in the beginning, if it's a new teacher, we also divide it into management and rigor. So if you're a new teacher, especially one that just left university, then obviously we're going to focus on your techniques, on your routines, on how to get the attention from the kids. So then you make sure that you observe the classes once a week. So you will observe the class, and then you will make the time. And then while you're observing the class, you are going to look for everything that the teacher is doing good. And then you're also going to look at a highest leverage action step. So a highest leverage action step is one thing that the teacher will change immediately, and that will create the biggest change in the class. And then later you will make a time to speak to the teacher, and then, or not teach, coach the teacher. And when you do that, you start with things that obviously went well, and then you are going to ask them about. So say for example, it is they were teaching a lesson. Then you're going to ask, but how do you know everybody in your class was understood it? And then the teacher's going to say, well, I don't. And then you're going to say, well, maybe this time, next time you can try this method. and then you give the teacher the action step, and then most importantly, you practice. So you practice that action step that you just gave the teacher, you practice it with them, so that when they go into the next class, they can just do it. And then you observe again. So that's the one type of observation and feedback. And then when a teacher has been with you for a while, they're used to the coaching, which is also really an effective tool, is to give real-time feedback. So that must obviously be rolled out properly in your school, because otherwise, teachers don't like it if you just interrupt them, and you shouldn't like it because it's rude to just interrupt the teacher. But there's different ways to do it. You can use hand signals, you can do boards, you can wait till the teacher's busy with independent practice, and then you can walk side by side then and say, okay, what are you seeing? Let's look at the data. What are some of the trends? Let's give this feedback. So it's almost like if you can imagine that you are observing somebody, or a doctor has got somebody that they're training, and you are in operation, and then the doctor can see that his student is going to make a mistake. It's obviously the best to correct the mistake immediately, otherwise you can cost that person their job and their life, the other person. So that is why real-time feedback is really effective. And because if you are going to keep on doing or training stuff that's not effective, then it's going to become a habit. So real-time feedback we have found to be very resourceful and effective. And then the last thing is data meetings. So data meetings is new. So that's the rigor part of the training, is to sit with the teacher and help them discuss the data, help them to see where's the gaps, help them to work out a reteach plan. Because it's really, I teach myself, I teach religion studies, and it's really disheartening to teach your heart out and to put in the best that you possibly can. And then when you look at the data, you can see about 60% of your class is not getting the concept. So it's really an effective tool to sit with the teacher to see what exactly is it that they're not understanding. Because a lot of times what teachers do is they will teach a lesson. For example, if you're teaching fractions and you're teaching a child how to add fractions, and then the kids will write the test, and then they will see, well, 60% is failing. And then you reteach the entire lesson. But it's not that the kids are not understanding everything of fractions. There's one step that they're not getting. So we train our teachers how to get that step, how to go into exactly what is the conceptual gap that the kids are not understanding, and then we help the teacher to work out to work on a reteach. So that is observation and feedback. And then this is just an example of my dashboard, because this relates to my next slide, if I'm right, which is professional development. So when we look at our action steps and what's happening in the classes, then I can determine and my leadership team on where do I have to pitch the professional development. So if I can see that when we're walking into the classes, and if you look at the bottom, is a teacher collecting data, then I can see last term only 52.5% of my teachers were collecting data. So then it's really important for me to train my teachers on how to collect data. So that brings me to professional development. I love that quote. The only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. And I'm sure if you're a school leader, you all would have felt like that before. If there's a teacher that's not buying into your culture, that's not meeting your expectations and having them stay, it's really I think it's really damaging to your school. It's much better to train a teacher, and then if they leave, good for them, because it means that they are going to implement the things that you taught them at another school. So our professional development is either, so obviously we have the normal courses like first aid courses that we give to our teachers if they need it, but our focus is definitely the professional development that will happen once a week. And the way we do professional development is also, we don't get somebody to speak for the teachers for 2 hours. We call it a see it, name it, do it. So the facilitator or the person that's presenting the professional development will first make the teacher see the gap. So for example, that data, so I will have a screen and I'll say, okay, so you taught this lesson and only 60% of your kids passed the test. So what's the problem? The problem is they're not collecting data. So that's the name it part. So the name it part will then, so whatever the thing will be, the focus will be for the day. So it could be to create labs, to have a monitoring pathway, or to just have a reteach. And then the majority of the professional development is spent on practicing. And that's I found that really effective, because what we often have, we have our WCB or Department of Education really have a lot of training, and some of the stuff is really, really effective. But what's not effective is I will attend it and then I will sit there for 2 hours and I will be inspired. And then I will get a document and I will come back to school and I'll put the document in my drawer. And then most of the time I won't look at it again. And the reason for that is because I didn't have time and in the meeting to practice it, the see it, name it, do it. So if a teacher does it, if they practice it, it becomes second habit, and then you are more familiar with it. And obviously there are also weekly data meetings. So we have practice clinics as well with our new teachers. So if we have a professional development session on the entry routine, for example, and we can see half of our teachers are not doing it effectively, then we have practice clinics after school to make sure that all of our teachers are confident in the routine. And then we also have weekly data meetings where we sit as a subject group and we speak about some of the gaps from grade 8, which is where our high school start, until high school, until the last year, so that we can see what are the things that we really need to get right in grade 8 and grade 9 for the kids to be effective in grade 12. And that is how we translate our strategic objective into plans. I think it's becoming increasingly more difficult to teach in schools. I was thinking this morning about how do I get my parents to take more responsibility for the kids. So it's definitely not easy being a school leader and being a teacher in school. So these 7 things has really helped me to remain focused and to really look at the problems and to fix the problems. And we've really had great success with that. And the success is definitely not because of me. I'm just somebody who started at school who knew nothing. I just really believe in these things, and we work really hard to train our teachers into these methods. So yeah, that was my my nuggets, as I was asked to do earlier. So I think I ended just in enough time so that we can address some of the questions.
Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. I took notes, so thank you very much. I think we have a couple of questions in the chat. And a lot of comments, so people have been really engaging and participating. I think, wait, where was it? Oh yes, Jasmine. Hi Jasmine, how are you? She's asking if you have peer mentors.
Yes. Sorry. So yeah, that's a great quote. Great question. So what we do is, so our leadership team basically is the mentor. But what we love to do is, say for example, we've got, well, that's not an example, it's really happening in our school. We've got a really difficult class. It's our grade 9C class. They give everybody a grade. It doesn't matter, like, you can do almost a perfect entry routine. You have to redo it with them. But there's one teacher in our school that does not have any issues with them. So what we do is we take them, the other teachers who observe them, to that teacher's class to see what do you do that's different from what I do, and we learn from each other. And that is really amazing. It's really effective, because often when teachers hear from a principal, they say, like, obviously the kids will listen to you. You're the school principal. They're scared of you. But then when you take them to a colleague's class that started just with them, and it's not to, we don't have that kind of our staff is really competitive, but we like helping each other. So you don't take a teacher to another teacher's class so they can feel bad about themselves. You take them to really to see what you can learn from them. And often it's something silly, like giving a child a fist pump when they go into a class, and this particular class really like that. So definitely we have peer mentoring and then peer observation, and that is really it is really a powerful tool as well. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Mike. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Renate. Fantastic presentation. Thank you. I especially was interested in the point around data, because there's such a big debate about data and assessment, and data can be useful, but also you get into this discussion of as you touched on, what do you assess? So you assess understanding. That's fantastic. But then it's obviously can be quite time consuming in terms of for your teachers. You know, obviously if you're testing knowledge, you can do lots of kind of multi-choice quizzes, but then you're into testing knowledge very regularly. Testing understanding needs thought and time putting into it. So how do you manage that with your teachers and workload and workload balance?
Yes, obviously we have quite big classes. Last year, my biggest class that I personally had 49 kids in. So if you're teaching 49 kids, it's really difficult. I don't expect my teachers, some of my teachers, like I've got one teacher who teaches the whole grade. So that's 400 grade 8s. So you don't expect the teacher to write a physical test every day. So and obviously we are not perfect in this. This is our biggest room of improvement in our school. But what I do in my class and what my management team, what they've been starting to do in their classes is once you've taught the lesson and then you do the we do. So when the kids are busy with independent practice, you are walking around. They're not writing a test. So what we do is we call it a know and show. Okay. And then, so say for example, I am teaching a literature essay. Okay. And in the literature essay, I want the child to make a point, and then I want the child to have evidence, and then I want the child to have explanation. So then I give it the child. I've taught them how to do it, and now they're going to practice it. So then I divide my monitoring into point, evidence, explanation to those 3 labs. Okay. So then lab 1, I'm telling the kids, okay, I'm walking around, I'm looking at all of your points. I want to see your points that you are making. And then you have a monitoring pathway, and your pathway is very deliberate. You start with the child, your best performer in your class, to see if they understand it. If they don't understand it, I look at my two top performers. If they don't understand it, then I'm probably going to have a problem. And then I try to understand what is it that they're not getting. And then I give them batch feedback. Then I'll tell the kids, okay, pens down, eyes on me. And then I'm going to say, I see most of you are, I don't know, you are whatever the gap is. And you're not teaching them a whole lesson. You're just closing the gap quickly. It's quick. And then you carry on. And then you start with your kids that are struggling. And you don't spend more than 30 seconds with the child. If you see they're doing something wrong, then you remind them of the rule. Then you tell them, I ask you to translate this to this. You are remind me of the rule again. So you're not giving you the most important thing there is to make the child think. They have to do the heavy lifting. They have to do. So the teacher actually becomes the facilitator in the class. And if you do this correct, then your work is less. You are not marking tests like class tests every day. That is effective, but nobody has time to do that. So you have to break down. And I think this is also part of the problem, because as a teacher, it's really difficult to try to think like a child, to really understand why the child is not getting it. But if you can do that, then you can close the conceptual gaps that the child is having. And you are not just teaching to the task. You are not teaching a procedure. You want to test the conceptual gap. And sometimes we have to go back a few years. When our children start with us in grade 8, 81% of them read on a grade 4 level and do maths on a grade 4 level. So sometimes you have to go back, and the curriculum doesn't always allow it. But if you can at least close some of those conceptual gaps, then it's really, really important. So I hope that answers your question, or some of it.
Yes, that was fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Cara, we've got some questions in the chat as well. We've got one from Sandhya, just in case you hadn't seen it.
Okay. We have Sandhya is asking for you to share some examples of peer influencers at faculty level, and how do you leverage it for school improvement? And what are the incentives provided to teachers for an exceptional performance or initiative taken? Is that right, Sandhya?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, with the peer influence, it's very important to see you as a school leader. You have to know your staff, and you have to see who is going to be the ones that's going to take to have complete buy-in. And then what I've seen teachers do is that if you can see, like this post-level 1 teacher, this teacher who just started with you, they are being a rock star when it comes to transitioning. Then they kind of want to know, but how did you do it? And then you become like a peer influencer like that. So we don't have like assigned people to that you earmark to become an influencer. You just see of the teachers that's really big, like they're doing well with the techniques. The kids respect them, and then, I mean, everybody wants good results. So you ask the teacher, how did you do that? And then you just encourage the teachers to share. Like at the moment, I'm encouraging the teachers who has some success with data to tell the other teachers how you're doing it. And then the other one, incentives. We're a no-fee school, so we definitely don't have any monetary incentives. It's just that, I suppose the thing that drives us is we are, in South Africa, we do not have any no-fee schools with 100% grade 12 pass rate, none. It doesn't happen. And in South Africa, it makes me very angry because there's this big gap between previously advantaged and previously disadvantaged schools. And I just feel it's so unfair. And then I try to find like-minded people. I try to find other people who also, it makes them angry. They want to fix it. They want to fix the education system. They want a no-fee school to do just as well as your top private school. And it's possible because the kids are not born with different IQs. It's all the other stuff that, you know, that we are fighting against. And it shouldn't be like that. I mean, everybody has a right to education, but also quality education. So I think that is incentive, that we are here to fight the same battle. And the unspoken rule of our school is whatever it takes. So it is really the case. I mean, when I'm done here now on this, I am driving to a child's house to ask where they've been because I can't reach them. So it is really to get people on your team that will really do whatever it takes, and to not ask, okay, if I come here on a Saturday, am I going to get paid? No, you are not coming here because you want to get paid. You are coming here because you have a purpose, you have a why. And the why is to get these kids equal education to everybody else in the country. And I think that is a better driver than anything else. It drives me. It's a thing that the anger that we have for the inequality is definitely the thing that it's a very good incentive.
Yeah, I feel the same way here in Argentina. We have this really also huge gap between private schools and public schools. So I have sometimes the same feeling as you. Okay, Sandhya, do you want to jump in? Is there anything you'd like to add or ask our speaker? Sandhya?
No, just thank you very much. Your speech was really, really very inspiring. And I mean, I asked about peer influencer and incentives because we all believe that an external motivation is equally important as an internal motivation. But sometimes, as you said, that, you know, whatever it takes. And if that is what is driving you, your purpose is driving you, then sometimes external motivation is not required. But I still feel that if you are a school leader, you should do something for the incentives of the staff which is performing well, because everybody loves a pat on the back and a few brownie points.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you're doing exceptional.
Yeah, like that we do often. It's just never in the form of like a raise, because we are not able to do that. So it would have been perfect if we can, like, for me, an ideal world to pay a teacher based on their performance, which we can't do. But we do a lot of other things. Like we make sure that if a teacher is shining, we try to create a leadership position for them, be it grade head, be it subject head, anything like that. And we celebrate our teachers often. And as a leader, what I try to do is I try to see the good things. Like, say, for example, I can see a teacher having a really meaningful engagement with a child. Then I will give the teacher a phone call. And I will say, listen, I saw you doing this to the child. I just want to give you a massive shout out. That was brilliant. And we also do public shout outs where we get together on a Thursday. And then before we do the PD, we start with a shout out. So it will just be the teachers giving shout outs to each other. And that has been really, really effective. And then I also do, I do a weekly, we call ourselves the Wolf Pack, and then we have a weekly What's Up with the Wolves. And in that, I also have a staff shout out where I have a picture of the child, but where I just have like a shout out to a teacher that did something. And sometimes it wasn't even like a massive thing. Sometimes it was just organizing a field trip. Or sometimes it was like seeing the potential of a child and really pushing them, you know. So it is, and the staff yeah, they kind of, you know, when they get it, they take a screenshot and they put it on their WhatsApp status. So we do that kind of incentives. It's just never in the form of a salary increase, unfortunately, but I wish.
Yeah, I just want to share a little tip which we do in our school is that, of course, we also don't have performance to pay or a differential payment system. We also
Yeah.
don't have anything of the sort. But what we do is a lot of appreciation letters from the head. So whenever somebody is doing well, whenever the class, not an individual, but when a class as a whole has shown improvement, or a class as a whole has done exceptionally well in a certain area, or a team which has won a particular event, whether it's a sporting event or it's a cultural event, and or there is somebody who has done an excellent publication or an excellent movie. So we do issue letters of appreciation, and everybody treasures them.
That's great. Thank you, Sandia,
Yes.
for sharing.
Thank
Lovely.
you. That is a great idea. I can't believe I've never even thought about that, but that's great. And it's, you know, even if you put it like on a formal letter, that really is a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, and we can have our last question, I think. Jasmine, are you there?
Thank you, Carol. It's great to see you. I just have this one question, Renata. I want to hop onto. I've got nothing significant to say, but I want to jump onto Mike's question about research. So, how often do you do it? Do you do the pre-analysis, pre-data? Use that as like, you know, where we're going from here, and then when you do the actual, say 2023 data collection, what do you do for an action plan? Is it within the school improvement plan? I know you have daily things you do, but I just want to know the research, how often, and which, like, what part of the research do you use to do action plans?
That is a great question. So we have a school improvement plan, but what we do is we have big rocks. So the reason why we call it big rocks is because it's easy to get distracted from the things that really matter. So if you look at a glass and you put in a little bit of sand, and then you put a little bit of bigger things, and then you put in the big rocks, then your glass doesn't have space for the big rocks. So what we do is we have 3 major big rocks a year: one with teaching, one with learning, and one with culture. So for example, for this year, our big rock is data. So we want our teachers to inform their next level based on data. So on that, on every teacher type of thing, you have to look at it every day. And for me, is I also look at data every day. So I look at let's say at the moment we're busy writing exams. So I am comparing everything. I'm comparing how my classes are doing with each other. I'm comparing my kids this year to last year's kids. I'm comparing like on every child's level, like the kids who are failing. Like, why are they failing? Is it because they're not attending school? Is it because they've got social economic issues? Is it because they're in a disruptive class? So it's really important to look at everything as often as you can to try to identify the problem. And once you've identified the problem, then the real problem, because we can often go, we guess what the problem is. But it's really important to identify the real problem. And that takes time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it's hard work. And then from there, you look at the possible solutions, or things like how you can fix the problem or your area of growth. And it's very important not to get distracted, because there's a lot of things that you can change in our school. Like today, I walked around in the school, and there was not a lot, but there was more litter than usual. And then you immediately get angry. It's like, why are the kids not? So then you can get an action plan how to clean up the litter. But then it's important. But I can ask somebody else to do that. I have to focus on the things that's really important, that is going to change the trajectory of the kids' future.
Thanks, Renata. Last one. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you say, what are the change you've seen between when you started this initiative and now? What's the on a scale of 1 to 10?
8. And
Amazing.
as evidence, I can look at our school applications. When we started in 2018, we had 400 applications. And this year we had 2,500 applications. Yeah, so we are in the Western Cape. We are in all the schools in the Western Cape, in our province. We are in the top 10 for most applications. And it's strange for a no-fee school, because usually the things that go apart with no-fee schools is undisciplined kids, you know, and we don't have that. So we've really seen, and then obviously also now for the first time we can track our kids as to what they're doing after school. So our kids are studying at university. One of our kids went to Antarctica for research. So our kids are really doing amazing things. And what's also cool to see now is that some of our kids, some of our teachers are being promoted and being headhunted for really awesome positions. And in the beginning, that really bothered me, because you don't want to leave your staff. But I mean, the more people you have to create change, the better. Because we can't create the change in South Africa in one school. We have to have a wildfire of schools that's doing the same thing.
Well, I think this was an amazing session. I've been so inspired, and I'm going to come back to my school with all these things to start working on this. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. And I would like to invite you all for our next session. It's going to be on Wednesday, not a Thursday. We will be talking about climate education. So everyone is welcome to attend. Okay, and thank you so much, Renata, for being here with us today. Okay, so see you next